This episode of Imperfect Strike was recorded July 2025. Alice speaks with Hannah about the grassroots coalition called Mayday Movement USA. They discuss the group's perspective of the Capitol since their sustained presence on May 1st, 2025. In light of the current events, we hope for the safety of all in D.C. Stay strong. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Imperfect Strike, where the strikes are imperfect, but they are happening nonetheless, and we are going to succeed. And I am your host, Alice. Today we have with us Hannah from Mayday Movement. I am so excited to talk to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about all the stuff we're doing.
Excellent. So I know a little bit about Mayday Movement, but really all I know is that it's a movement which is occupying a space in DC right now. I think at first it was a different space, but now it might be near Union Station, question mark. And you are a movement to impeach the president. Is that correct?
Almost. So we started as a 24/7 presence on the mall. We've now kind of divided into two groups, and the portion that has remained Mayday Movement is no longer part of the on the ground presence because essentially the logistical and manpower requirements of a 24/7 presence somewhere that you are not allowed to sleep, that you are not allowed to leave, you're not like, was so high that we weren't really able to do anything else.
Oh, wow.
And that was really for us. There were people who were very committed to the 24/7 physical presence, and that's great. And there were people who felt like that was good, but not the way we get impeachment to happen, right? Since impeachment is an action that the legislature has to take. So we decided to divide into two teams to be more effective. And now an organization called Flare, who is made up of former Maydayers who are very close partners, are running the 24/7 site.
Mm-hmm.
And we are running more of the mobilization and congressional outreach side at Mayday. But it is the total mission is impeachment and removal, where you see ourselves as the funnel that takes the public support for impeachment and points it directly into the offices of legislators, because they are exercising our power and we need to make sure that they know what we want.
Right. Absolutely. They work for us, not the other way around.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me more about the you're not allowed to sleep part of this. What's up with that?
Yeah. So it is an incredibly challenging thing to occupy a space 24/7 on the National Mall for a lot of reasons, not least because, people have jobs and kids and dogs and plants or whatever it is that they don't want to leave.
It's all about the plants,
But
people.
yeah, I mean, I worry about my
Oh,
plants.
absolutely.
But also because the rule is that you are not allowed to, quote, camp at the National Mall.
Mm.
And the way they define camping is by sleeping or preparing to sleep. And that is a real challenge for people that are there 24/7, because it means essentially we had to do a relay style presence and have somewhere else for people to sleep. And then we also got into a challenge where, like, what do you do with people who are casual volunteers that want to be there, that you want to have there, but then they start falling asleep, and that puts our permit at risk. And if you're trying to do something long term, it's not like the one-off kind of march activities where if you push the bounds, it's okay. If you want to stay long term, you really have to play a different game, right? You have to invest in a long-term good relationship with the Park Service. And
Yeah.
if they catch people that are with you sleeping, you can lose your permit. And if you lose your permit, you're not going to be a 24/7 protest. So
Wow.
it is a really tough balance. And also there's not power at most of the locations, so you have to figure out a generator situation.
Uh-huh.
As it got hotter into the summer, it got to be a real problem. The biggest thing that actually, I think, challenged us was the windstorms that started to come through in late May and early June. we had bought 4 industrial tents for our spaces,
Yeah.
and they all got, well, 3 of 4 got absolutely destroyed by a windstorm.
No.
Yeah, so we're entirely grassroots funded. I told a MAGA family member about what we were doing, and he was like, "Oh, so you're getting some Soros money for that?" And I was like, "Are you kidding? My biggest donation is $100. If that is what George Soros is handing out, then y'all are way overreacting. This is ridiculous."
Right. Wow,
Like,
wow, wow.
so it's hard. We lost several $1,000s worth of equipment in that storm, and then had to figure out how to proceed. So that site is, I think, important and a meaningful contribution to the anti-Trump movement, but it was so much logistical effort and high responsiveness effort
Mm-hmm.
that it made it impossible to really focus on a congressional outreach plan or a mutual aid mobilization plan, which is the 2 things that I think we're trying to focus on now at Mayday 2.0, I guess I'll call it.
Sure. Yes, we love mutual aid. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're trying to create systems that make it possible for people from Oklahoma, New Mexico, whatever, to get to DC to talk to their legislators.
Oh, that's
And
wonderful.
yeah, and it's honestly the only thing we have left, right? Like impeachment, honestly, if you look around at what's happening in the courts, if you look at what is being passed by Congress, if you look at what the executive branch is being allowed to do without oversight from either the judiciary or Congress,
Mm-hmm.
literally the only tool left to check executive overreach is impeachment
Yes, and strike.
and strike. Yeah.
We're
Yes.
all about strike, but yes, impeachment is strike.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let me back up just 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah.
So these permits are coming from the city of DC, or they're coming from the Park Service because you're on the mall? Who's about these
Yeah.
permits?
So, yeah, DC is an interesting animal because it's got so many different jurisdictional bodies involved. But the National Mall and associated Capitol grounds are all National Park Service jurisdiction.
Okay.
And the Park Service has been stripped for parts.
Yeah.
And so, even when they're trying their best, it is still really hard to get answers to questions, for example. And then you make a guess because you're running out of time to, like, is this generator good enough for their specs?
Uh-huh.
I don't know, but we have to have a generator because it's going to be 34 degrees tomorrow night. And
Oof.
um,
And we've got to
so,
be able to not sleep and stay up and take
yep,
care of
yep,
ourselves. Yep.
yep.
Wow.
So it's a real challenge.
That is so challenging. And and specs, they must have specifics on like every little thing.
They really do.
Yeah.
They really do, but they don't publish them. You have to guess.
If your sneakers are not compliant.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then
Okay.
they make new rules for your location. That was really what tipped me over the edge with the location we're at by Union Station now,
Mhm.
or Flair is at by Union Station now.
Right.
It's it has a special rule against having any kind of paint or chalk because apparently people vandalize the Columbus statue there a lot.
That's kind of hilarious.
I know, and I'm like, oh no.
Right, yeah, right. That's not karma at all. It's fine.
Yeah, like I wasn't into doing that or anything, and that wasn't a thing we had even considered doing. But also, like, I think it's funny that they had to make up a special rule to protect Christopher Columbus from vandalism. Like,
I don't know why that tickles me. I that's just really great.
they
You
didn't
think
tell
it
us
would
in
be
advance.
for something else,
Yeah,
right? Like no
yeah,
vandalism inside the actual train station, where people are eating or so. I don't know, who knows? But for the
yeah.
Columbus statue, come on now.
I know,
Let's not waste regulations on that.
I know. It's so bizarre. But anyway, so they didn't tell us. They showed up for an inspection and then told us we had to get rid of all of our paint. And one of the things that Mayday has been focused on from the beginning is generating art that really starts anti-Trump conversations and pulls on an emotional level
Hmm.
that is a lot harder to reach MAGA people in particular, or even peripheral people that are just kind of culturally in Republican areas
Sure.
with argument, but you might be able to reach them with art. And that's been something that we've really focused on. So having a lot of like paint and chalk and those kind of things around is pretty integral to the work that we've been trying to do. And them showing up and being like, yeah, y'all got to go somewhere else and do all this. It's like, uh,
No.
cool.
Right.
Great.
How
Awesome.
about
This is,
we're just gonna ignore that and stay here and do our art thing?
it's rough.
It is rough. So, okay, so who founded this movement? How did this all begin?
So, in late February, I think it was like the 25th, I got a call from a guy named Peter Stinson, who is a former Coast Guard, and he was the Coast Guard crisis response lead for the Deepwater Horizon cleanup.
Oh,
And
wow.
he kind of brought this crisis response structure to how he wanted to go about an impeachment and removal push.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it was a really great starting point. And I was volunteer number two, or like, I guess volunteer number one if you don't count Peter.
Right.
Um, and so basically from there, it was Peter and me, and then a few other people have been long termers now, long term as anything feels like it is in the protest world.
Right. Since last October. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we started to build out the preparation for the 24/7 presence, the physical resources, the permitting application, all that kind of stuff. And then starting in probably early April, Peter he had some family stuff come up and started to take a back seat. And also the crisis response mechanisms stopped being the most effective tools because we were talking about such a long-term planning activity.
Okay.
And so he kind of started to fade into the background and became more of a useful volunteer after that point.
And that's when the legislative piece sort of came in.
Yeah, so the three areas of Mayday have always been art, education, and legislation. So the art piece, I kind of already talked about, of trying to pull people's hearts into the anti-Trump world and into the push to have constitutionally limited executive power. And then the other area of education is really geared towards a community outreach and teaching people the kind of basics of what impeachment actually is. For example, one of the most common pushback questions you get when you start talking about impeachment is, well, he's already been impeached twice and it didn't work.
Right.
Well, yes, but they didn't finish the job the first two times, right? And you have to go through the process of, so the House actually does the impeachment, but the Senate has to do a conviction, and that takes 2/3. And we got well over half both times, but we were, and those kind of structural explanations are part of the education push that Mayday has been doing. And then the third area has been the legislative outreach. And that's been a really exciting area for me as a big nerd, to be going into congressional offices. And one of the big things we do is we collect signatures. Particularly DC has a lot of tourists from around the country, and we can get signatures from any of those tourists on declarations that we've written in support of impeachment and removal. And we take them in person to the legislators' offices and drop them off. Or if the constituent wants to come meet their legislator, we will also coach them through how to do that. We'll take them to the meeting if they want. We'll facilitate that in whatever way we can.
So this person potentially is just like a tourist having a good time in DC, and
yep.
they meet Mayday, and they might be meeting with their congressperson after that.
Yeah, and that's one of the, honestly, if the only thing Mayday accomplishes is teaching people that they can walk right into their legislators' offices and expect to get to talk to someone about what they want, then we've done a good job. Like, if that is all that comes of this, I will be pretty proud of that outcome.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's really amazing how many people take us up on it. Like, people will interrupt their plans to go have a conversation about something that they believe in. And so that's been really encouraging for me, and especially in light of how crappy Congress has been over the last 6 months now. yeah, wherever you want to draw the line.
Sure.
But it's really, amazing how many people are willing to inconvenience themselves. And I think that's an
Mhm.
important part of it, right? Is that part of what Mayday's built on is the belief that legislators and people listen more, are more persuaded by your passion if you demonstrate it through inconvenience, right? So sending an email, making a call, those are good things and you should definitely do them. But the harder something is for you to do to get in touch with them, the more meaningful it is when it lands on their desk.
That makes sense. And also, I think as a society, we're probably prepped for that on purpose. We're probably told if you don't like something, call us or email us because that's not really going to, change their day in
Right,
any way,
right.
right?
Absolutely.
That, I mean, then we hear over and over again. I mean, oh my gosh, this stuff with the big ugly bill that just passed.
Yeah.
People call your senators, call your representatives, and you do it because you want it to work. But in the back of my mind, I'm kind of going, we know this doesn't work. We know that. I shouldn't be so defeatist. Sometimes calling representatives does work, and that's important work to be done. But with these things that are so entrenched, right? Like the war machine
Yeah.
and Palestine, and then just the worship of money and the corporations and the tech bros at this point, is it, the calling a few calls is not going to make the difference. So you have to go meet the people. I'm definitely guilty of that. I think a lot of Americans are exhausted, first of all.
Yeah. Yeah.
We commute up to 2, 3 hours a day sometimes. We work full days. The last thing that we want to do on our weekend or our time after work is drive down to City Hall, right? And have to go talk to
Yeah.
our legislators.
Yeah.
But it's something that needs to be done more and more.
Well, and I think there's you bring up a lot of good points about how structurally we are mm, disconnected from each other, but also from legislators, right? There's this sense that they are inaccessible both in practice and in theory.
Mhm.
So you can't just like there's a weird vibe about walking through the door into the Capitol building. People just kind of stop.
Right. Right.
And it's I know it's hard and it feels awkward. It's almost like the reluctance to get on the phone, right? Like you hear jokes about the millennials who never get on the phone and
Right.
we right like
Yeah.
we want everything to be done automatically over text and never have to speak to anybody. It's almost that same kind of like freeze of, oh, this is gonna suck,
Right.
and
Right. Have to
not
talk to
wanting
someone in
to,
person.
right, yeah, and you're right, it does suck, but it's also a muscle that you can build up,
Hmm.
and the more you do it, the easier it gets and the more difference you're making. So really win-win there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we need to do it. It has to be done. Okay, I'm unfamiliar with this. So you at any time you could just walk into a legislator's office in the Capitol, is that correct?
I mean, during business hours,
During
yeah.
business hours. Okay.
Yeah, so you have to go through a small amount of security, which it's like almost never anybody there, so it's not like a big long line or anything.
Sure.
Um, and you go through a metal detector, and you can't bring like pepper spray or anything like that. But otherwise, you just walk in, find your legislator on the big long list of offices in the building, which is almost always right as you walk in.
Uh-huh.
And then you go to their office, and some intern will greet you at the door and say, how can I help you? And that's, I think, the part that scares most people the most is like the freeze up. What do I say when they say, how can I help you?
Hmm.
Um, because, you've got people like Cliff Cash, who has led a couple of these for us, and he'll walk in and be like, hey, you work for a trader. And you're like, okay, well, maybe not everybody has that vibe, right? Like
Right.
maybe not everybody's going to do that.
Let's cut to the chase here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got people who are like, well, I was just hoping to drop off this literature, which is fine. Like there's a whole spectrum of options, but I think people need to I find that for our training purposes, the easiest thing that most people feel comfortable doing is saying, hey, I am a constituent of Representative so and so's, and I wanted to talk to someone about impeachment because I believe that Donald Trump is unfit to be president.
Hmm.
Who can I talk to?
Hmm.
And then just pitch it back to them, see who they put you in a room with. And 9 times out of 10, you can just talk to somebody right then.
Right, right.
And if you can't, they'll talk to you about scheduling. They, especially in the House, they really take constituent visits seriously. They
Wow.
get a lot of them. They really don't. Um,
Which is crazy to me because, well, I mean, maybe it depends on the representative, but again, it seems like so many of them are just so good at ignoring what we want.
so we had a meeting with Representative Knott, I think was his name, from the Durham area in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And we had a meeting with, I think, 3 of his staffers, including his chief of staff. And they said they had literally not gotten any anti-Trump calls at this point. And this was in mid-May.
No way.
Not a one in Durham.
In Durham.
I was like, do you have your phones on? Like,
Yeah, right.
can't really believe that.
Huh.
And I think they had also had there was this, I can't remember what it was, but there was a specific issue coming up. But we were there with constituents. We had a constituent who worked for one of the major university hospitals in the area, was one of the best robotic surgeons. And she was like, I'm not going to stay if y'all aren't going to pay for medical care for people because that's what I do.
Oh,
And
yes. Tell him, Queen.
yeah, she was awesome. She was so good. And like she hardly talked at all. I was like not sure she was going to really engage
Yeah.
with during like the trainings and stuff like that. And then we showed up and she was just like, I will leave and you should care about that. And I was like, yes, you are so cool.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
and they were really honestly floored by that feedback and they got her contact info and they wanted to talk to her about it. Like, did it
Wow.
change that representative's vote? Maybe not, but they actually had to consider some negative consequences for once. So that's cool.
And
Uh,
it's right there in front of them, the feedback.
right.
It's not just on a phone, right? And then like a little nasty comment that they don't know if it's a bot or not.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. I think and people can say they're from anywhere. People can say they vote anywhere, whatever, when they call. It's a lot harder to look somebody in the eyeball and lie about how something will impact you or how something will impact them, that kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Boom, bing, bing. Divorce can be a really painful subject, but not for me. Hi, I'm Maeve, and I just divorced some pretty major retailers in my area. That's because I found out that most vendors at farmers markets take food stamps. For more information, check the details below. Bing, bong, bong.
Do you ever see the Code Pink videos online?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
where they're just following representatives around all the time and confronting them, and it always just astounds me when people they'll say, I'm not, basically in better wording, "Hi, you're a war criminal. You're doing war crimes," and the person will just, spout some lies back or just look at their phone pretending they're getting a call. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I do think that there's a whole spectrum of ways you can persuade. And Mayday's lane is really a little bit more of the policy appeal to try to give them cover to do what we think a part of them at least already wants to do in a lot of situations, right? Like
Hmm.
a lot of these Republicans are more afraid of Trump's wrath and his base's wrath than they are actually on board.
Hmm.
And so if we can give them some kind of reassurance to do the right thing, we really just have to give them somewhere to go, right? We're kind of trying to build an infrastructure, a vibe shift. And that's the other thing. The Capitol's a weird place, man. They have only mainstream media on TVs. They have basically no sense of, well, not all of them, but the vast majority have no sense of the social media vibe around the things that are happening and think that
Really?
what they see on whichever news station they choose to subscribe to is what the public is imbibing.
Interesting. So even though they've got interns and
Yeah.
staff and whoever
Yeah, they're
who
all
are,
old as hell. Like,
well, that too, yeah.
right? Like 3 Democratic congressmen have died in office since January.
Oh, that's good. Great.
Yeah. So they're
Yeah,
all really old and
really old.
don't understand the internet. Like there's two ways you cannot understand the internet, right? One is you way over index the reality of things that are happening there. Like
Uh-huh.
my mother-in-law thinks that everything she sees on YouTube is true, and she'll call me and be like, "Can you believe California just legalized sex predators marrying their underage victims?" And I'm like, "No, I literally cannot.
What?
I literally cannot believe that."
Yeah, no, because it did not happen, but
Yeah.
okay, go on.
Or you've got the other side, which says that the internet's just like, how does anybody even know that's real? Whatever, and just blows it off, right? And so neither of those are the correct response, but I feel like a lot of Congress just doesn't have the tools to engage with the online data that is available to them, but they don't make any use of. So
Hmm.
going there in person is really important to getting past that barrier. And also, one of the things that Mayday is starting to do is trying to train protest organizers and protest groups on how to engage with mainstream media in a way that gets them covered the way they want to be covered. Um,
Okay.
so we are going to start next week in DC trainings for the protesters and anybody who plans to protest and organize protests on how to get the attention from reporters to get them to talk to you instead of just reporting the numbers, because it seems like that's all that ever gets reported is like maybe the theme, some video clips, and the total number. That's it.
Right, right, right.
That doesn't convince anyone. But what you can do is use a certain set of skills to get attention from a reporter. Make sure you know how to give them exactly the soundbite you want and nothing else,
Hmm.
and drop the conversation when you're done. And we have a really great resource in one of our volunteers who used to run a film news bureau in DC and now volunteers with us and is doing these trainings. And I really hope that that's another way that we can get through to Congress that the people are demanding they act, that
Hmm.
people are actually willing to back them no matter what they hear about the MAGA base being nuts. We have their backs, do the right thing.
Right. I mean, yeah, I just keep coming back to these, like, what was it, 130-ish Democrats that did not even vote to impeach. And I'm like, can we read the room? Do you not, what, why? It's not even a fully formed question, just why?
Do you feel like your listeners understand the Rule 9 situation of how that impeachment vote went? Because I would love to explain how we got there. I think it's
Oh,
really
please.
interesting.
Yeah, go for it.
So, both Representative Thanadar and Representative Green have introduced articles of impeachment. And we've been working pretty closely with both of them on how to draft those, how to introduce them, and training them on how to use Rule 9. Rule 9
Hmm.
is a special House rule that allows House members to call for a vote on a piece of legislation without it having to go through committee first.
Okay.
And only certain, quote, privileged resolutions are able to do that. And the privilege means it has to be something that only the House has the power to do. And in context, that means that impeachment is a privileged revolution or resolution.
Freudian slip.
But yeah, oops, who said that?
Yeah, right. And so this rule was used this last go around, or it was not?
It was used by Representative Thanadar, and he called for a Rule 9 vote and then withdrew the vote in exchange for not getting a bunch of Democrats to go on the record against impeachment because they didn't want exactly what happened with Representative Green's articles of all of their names being put down as opposed to impeachment.
Hmm.
And so he had invoked Rule 9, which calls for a 48-hour, I think it's 48-hour, two House days. That's what it was. Um,
Okay.
a 2 House day timeline to bring it to the floor for a vote. And in those 2 House days, the Democratic leadership essentially pulled Thanadar aside and was like, hey, listen, this is going to make us look really bad. What can we give you to not do this?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so he was provided hope that they would actually back him later if he withdrew it. And so for that exchange, and I think that was a reasonable choice on his part, right? Of like, he knew that they were going to do exactly what they did to Green. So he did it as a way to try to apply pressure. Um, and they said he would be allowed to work with the Judiciary Committee to try to get it ready to get the whole caucus on board. So he withdrew his Rule 9 motion. And then about 2 weeks ago, Green introduced and called for Rule 9 vote on his articles of impeachment, which added, I think it was the jet that got added.
What's the jet? Sorry, I'm
Oh,
out of the.
the bribe jet. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, sure, sure, sure.
Yeah.
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 Oh, that jet, right.
Yeah. Just that last big news item that we thought was going to get everybody to break off from Trump. Now it's the Epstein files that we think are going to get everybody to break off from Trump. We'll see what actually
Oh
lands.
my God.
Like,
It's just like 15 scandals ago at this point. I can't keep up.
yeah. And then we thought the BBB was going to be the thing that got everybody to break away. And it's just like such garbage.
Yep.
Anyway, so Green then introduced his articles and they were brought to the floor. And the vote was technically not a vote for or against impeachment. It was a vote on whether or not to table, which means kill, the resolution currently on the floor, which was his articles of impeachment, which were very good, by the way. They were almost unobjectionably true, right? It's not a question of whether or not any of the things he alleged were true, because Donald Trump is posting from Truth Social all of the facts that make him unfit for office. It's not like in contention.
Oh man, he's accidentally posting the truth on Truth Social.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. And so right. The question is whether or not it qualifies as impeachment level high crimes and misdemeanors to remove him from office. When a resolution is brought to the floor, it can either go to a vote or can be tabled. And someone, I don't remember who, made a motion to table the resolution, and that passed with 135 Democrats, 2 abstaining Republicans, and everybody else against. So
they basically just said, we're not going to vote on this right now.
That is one interpretation, yes.
Okay.
And that's why they moved so fast on tabling it, so that they didn't have to go on the record as directly for or against impeachment. But effectively, it's the same thing.
Right. They still got completely dragged as like the 130 Democrats that betrayed us.
Which they should. And like my representative was one of those 135, and he heard from me about it. Like,
yeah,
it's not acceptable.
Right.
And I'm trying to convince anyone to primary him. So if you live in Don Byers' district, I want to hear from you. That guy.
I do not, unfortunately.
Oh man. Yeah.
But in some weird daydreams, I have been considering moving to a different part of Maryland to primary some other people.
Good. Do it.
No.
There are some good folks out of the Maryland side of the DMV.
There are.
I will say,
I mean, and we can get into this too, but I say even the good people, they're not going far enough. They're just
agreed.
No one is. It's just, not unprecedented times, I guess, because the world has been through these things, but just times that are not for, oh, we can do politics as normal, even though the other side is being insane.
Yeah. My biggest disappointment has honestly been on the Senate side, which we really haven't gotten to get into that much yet.
Okay, yeah.
To start impeachment in the House.
Right.
But like Cory Booker talks a great talk. Everything that comes out of his mouth is great. But if you were in the House, I would say he was doing all he could do.
Yeah.
But he's a senator. Okay. He's not doing all he could do because he's still allowing consent or was, now they're pretty much done, consent for the confirmations. He's still not calling for quorum calls to get, like, they don't have a quorum like 50% of the time that they're passing some of this crap, or confirming some of these crap people.
Wow.
nobody is using any of the procedural tools to slow down this steamroller that is taking over our democracy.
Right.
And then he goes and does a speech that we're calling a filibuster, but it wasn't actually blocking any legislation. It was after hours.
Wow.
Like, it was totally performative. And
Oh
don't
yeah.
get me wrong, I love a good performance. I'm part of an art-based, like I'm an art in an art-based resistance movement. I'm not opposed to performance as a good idea. But if you're
Sure.
in the job to actually do the thing, you should
Oh,
probably actually do the thing instead of play act it.
yes. And and I've been talking to people about this. It's like performative and you have to go a lot farther than that.
Exactly.
Bing, bum, bum. Attention all listeners, Maeve here on a podcast break. We've got a Maeve Light special as of late August 2025. The General Strike Discord is putting out an open call for educators of all kinds. If teaching excites you and helping others learn comes naturally to you, we want you. Join us in the General Strike Discord and volunteer with us today. Details in the episode notes below. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the show.
What I really hope that we can coalesce into over the next couple months before we get into the special elections in the fall and stuff like that
Mhm.
is what I think of as kind of the loyal dissent, right? The patriotism to the systems of democratic government superseding any kind of policy application that we might disagree on. I think we're pretty close to that in a lot of ways. Like, we're starting to see a bit more discomfort from people like Rand Paul, for example, that might be willing to get on board with a anti-executive overreach interpretation of what's happening
Yeah.
that could really create the kind of coalition that's needed to get us back to a policy discussion where we can have the normal give and take of good idea, bad idea, instead of
Hmm.
murder, not murder, right?
Well, sure, right.
Like
Yeah.
I have always been very political, but I've always enjoyed debating with people that I disagree with and that kind of stuff until 2015. And then it was like, well, we're not actually having a debate. You're just saying that these people are not worth anything.
Right.
And that's not a value difference we can overcome with like usually policy discussions are, I think this is the best way to solve problem A. Well, I think this is the best way to solve problem A. But if you're saying A is not a problem, in fact, I want those people to die, we're not really having a policy.
Right. Right. And it's so crazy to me that they can still brand themselves as the pro-life party somehow, and people buy that. A few people buy that still because it's just we don't care. They're straight up saying, well, everyone dies.
Yeah, that was such a mind-blowing. And then her response, did you see her response to the pushback on that? It was
No.
hilarious. She goes,
Oh.
wow, I didn't realize people didn't know that man was mortal. Like,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah, you're
Yep,
not
yep.
having a good faith conversation at all. Like,
Right. So clearly we should not have made any strides to, decrease child mortality in the
yeah,
1900s, any
yeah,
of that good stuff.
we're
Yeah,
just we're the pro-death people. That's us.
exactly. Okay, well, because there's some very interesting things here that we can get into. Before I ask about that, I want to ask really quickly. So there was recently a bad day for May Day, and somebody was arrested, I think I've heard. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So just to be clear, nobody was arrested doing Mayday stuff. None of
Okay.
like
Gotcha.
Mayday has not been implicated in any kind of bad stuff. Um,
Gotcha.
but the original idea haver, the founding idea guy, Peter Stinson, um, turns out had been my friend described it as peak boomer on the internet,
Ah,
saying things he shouldn't have said online. Um, and
yeah, you said peak boomer on the internet, and I went, uh-oh.
yep,
Where is this going?
yep. And he had said things like, man, if I had the skills, I would totally take out 47. Those kinds of things.
Ah, I see. Okay.
And so, not related to the Mayday work at all, except that both are motivated by thinking that Donald Trump shouldn't be president.
Right, right. That's the only connecting
Yeah.
factor.
But we didn't,
Okay.
yeah, so we didn't know. He was arrested on a Friday, the Friday, June, I guess it would have been 13th, the day before the birthday parade, which for us was a really big test,
Hmm.
because we're in DC 24/7, right? And the the chatter was that there were going to be a lot of right-wing extremists in the district for that. And so our fear
Absolutely.
was that we would be a very easy target for aggression.
Yeah.
Um, and
It's a very valid fear.
yeah, so we were pretty high intensity that weekend. And then we didn't hear from Peter, and he wasn't like in leadership or anything, but he was consistently on site just to be one of the volunteers and that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And then after the parade wrapped up, we kind of looked around and went, Peter never showed up today. That's weird.
Yeah.
And found out that night that he had been arrested by the FBI
Mm.
and was being held at the Eastern District of Virginia courthouse.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't know what he had been charged with. Um, and so we kind of panicked, thinking, like, is this direct? Because, his name is on a lot of our stuff because he was the original idea guy.
Yeah, of course.
Is this tied to Mayday? Are we about to all get arrested? Like, what's going on here?
Hmm.
Um, and our theory is that they wanted to do that because the original warrant that they used to search his house and take all of his political books, some of which I gave him, which was awkward, were the original warrant was clearly trying to paint a picture of a sort of domestic terrorist situation.
I see.
And so if that had been the accusation, that clearly would have been all of us. But they went to his house and all they found was a bunch of nerdy books about a guy who really, really thinks that we are in a bad political spot. They didn't find any guns, they didn't find any weapons, they didn't find any blueprints, any of that kind of crap.
Right.
Um, and
Well, and there's probably a million people on the internet every day going,
yes,
I wish 47 wasn't here, right?
yeah. And so
And
that's
so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
that's really, like, to me, the big story here should be fascist leaning government arrests political opponent over things at least 30% of the population do.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that should be the story. The story, like, was Peter dumb online? Absolutely. Should he have not said those things? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is that something that should lead to him being held for a week and now being on home confinement with an ankle monitor? I don't think so.
Hmm.
And I,
And does he just happen to be the leader of a movement that is trying to impeach the president? Yes,
yeah,
he does.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so
And
my,
I'm not a lawyer. I don't know where, freedom of speech, where things pass into threats, right? I'm not going to try to sit here and speculate on that. But like you just said, probably at least 30% of the country is writing these things online.
yeah, yeah, like it was, I've read the legal filings pretty closely. And while if I had seen this as somebody like that worked with him, I would have been like, you dumb, we are taking this down and I am banning you from the internet.
Right, right.
But also,
Yeah, to be clear, we are not pro
yeah,
threatening people online. Let's just
super,
put that out there.
super anti-threat, anti-violence, and like this is all over all of our literature. And Peter was one of the first people to make sure that we made nonviolence an integral part of what we do. So it's really hard for me to square the idea that they believe that this is a true threat with
Mhm.
any kind of good judgment. Like, it is clearly to me an attempt to smear somebody who was actually making some waves. Like, the impeachment pushes from Thanadar and Green made Trump mad. And we know this because he tweeted about it like he does.
Mm-hmm.
Like the things Trump says in his Truth Social posts are more threatening in a reality changing kind of way
Mm.
than some random guy on the internet 3 years ago saying he really wishes somebody would shoot that guy.
It was 3 years ago too.
Most of it was, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
Oh, good times.
yeah,
Not good times. I'm very sorry for Peter,
it
but
was very scary. We were like, wow, we've really graduated to true fascism. We're all in terrible danger, and that was scary.
that is a really scary moment. Yeah. Are they coming to round up our entire, movement right here?
But I will say, to the credit of all of the Mayday people, some of whom are now Flare, so shout out to the Flare people also.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was like, screw this, I'm out. I'm going to go protect myself.
Wow.
Nobody. Everybody said, I'm going to, mitigate this by, for example, people's dogs get shot all the time when warrants are executed.
Ah.
It is I used to do criminal defense, and one of my biggest sadnesses is how frequently caged dogs are shot by
Yeah.
cops coming to make arrests.
Wow. That's insane.
It's absolutely insane. And this is pre-Trump. It's just the way American law enforcement works. But so people
Yeah.
were, Maydayers were putting their dogs in kennel, like doing things to try to mitigate those risks. But nobody was like, I'm going to stop fighting Trump.
Oh, that's inspiring.
It really
Wow. They're
was.
sitting there going, I should protect my dog in case the police come for me, but
Yep.
I'm not going to try to stop fighting this fascism.
Yep. And it was really encouraging. And I'm a real believer in this and in this group. These are people that are going to do what it takes
Yeah.
to make the world pay attention. And it's scary, but so is living under fascism.
Yes. Right. The people who are saying I can't get involved, it's too dangerous. You are already in danger. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
You are already in jeopardy because of who's running the country.
Bing, bong, bong. Hi, Maeve here, and welcome to your podcast break. We're going to slow things down. First, take a few drinks, take a slow breath, and find 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And if that doesn't work, grab your pet and embrace it so tightly that it yearns to break free. And if all else fails, go out, touch some grass, and hug a tree. And when you're ready, enjoy the rest of the episode. Boom, bing, bing.
Have you heard from a lot of people for other organizations or in your personal life that you feel like have taken the be quiet, hope to attract no attention route?
I have. Yes, there's always going to be those people. I have been, slowly bullying my family and friends into signing strike cards because I think that's being persistent, not bullying, being persistent. Because in my view, that's just the only way that this is going to come down, and we get to build something new. I think there's always going to be people who they just really don't want to sacrifice what they're used to and their own comfort and the systems that they grew up with in order to build something better, right? So
Yeah.
when I talk to people about strike, it always comes back to the money. That's always well, we need our next paycheck. And I'm saying, okay, good, yes, sure, but you need your freedom of speech more than you need your next paycheck or your current house or your Amazon delivery. You you've got to be able to live in a place where you can say what you think. That's what we're fighting for here. And
Yeah.
it is a scary time. And I want to say thank you for, I'm right now I'm using an alias. I am a government worker myself, so um if I am able to make this project a full-time thing someday, that'll be great. I'll be able to use my own name, but uh right now I have to, kind of protect myself and my spouse and a little bit, right? And but all these people that I see coming to these protests who aren't wearing masks, who are, saying, sure, they're trying to do surveillance state, but here we are. You can go ahead and see me and see that I'm against you. And people who are using their names publicly, it really gives me a lot of hope. So thank you for doing that.
Well, and one of the things that has come up a lot in Mayday, as we try to figure out how to represent the rest of the country who's not able to be there front and center as much as we are, is privilege. Like in every sense of the word, it is our privilege and honor,
Mm,
and privilege as in elevation, that we are able to do this.
yeah.
And like, because I am economically secure and white, native born, cis person, I am able to take risks and talk for and about other people who are not able to take those risks.
Yeah.
And one of the ways we do that is also through legitimizing the movement, right? You would be really hard pressed to look through my background and be like, oh, well, she just hates America or whatever, right? Like,
Right.
like
Yeah.
I have worked at most of the libertarian and conservative leaning legal nonprofits in the country.
Right.
And I would have considered myself a Republican before Trump. It would be really hard. And I'm like a documented out in the world attorney. I run my own practice. It would be really hard to be like, well, she's just a Soros backed paid protester, whatever it is,
Hmm.
whatever the slander is that they can come up with.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
I,
Okay, so you come from a Republican background as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
what I really come from, I think, is a good systems background. And I care about everybody operating within the bounds of constitutional controls on power.
Hmm.
And when I was younger, I thought that the biggest risk of overreach came from the legislature, which typically led me to vote Republican.
I see.
As I've gotten older and the world has also changed, and I'm not really sure how much is from column A and how much is from column B,
Right.
but I have come to the conclusion that the risk is actually much higher from the executive branch side. And now I am pretty vehemently anti-Republican.
Hmm.
Um, so, but whatever the background is, it would be really hard to look at my track record and come up with some kind of angle to delegitimize the claims that I'm able to put forward.
Sure.
And that's what using a real name when you can does. And so I've always really been, and a lot of the people at Mayday do that, and I really appreciate it. Like, we have an amazing head of medical and security who is a ER nurse and is she's part of a biker group. Like, she is as not liberal appearing as you can possibly be.
Interesting.
And yet she is just putting it all on the line. She took a travel nurse position to be able to be in DC, to be around for the Mayday protest, to be able to make
Wow.
sure everybody was healthy and safe. Like, people are upending their lives to do this because it matters, and they're doing it in a way that will definitely cost us later if we lose.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, none of this is, easy. Oh, I'm just going to swing by something on the way home. And you guys have shown real commitment for sure.
Well, and I think that y'all should join us. Kind of like the strike cards are really an important message and signal to send as a form of threat, not of violence, but of repercussions, right?
Right.
And one of the things that we do is collect these signatures, and we also have it on our website. If anybody wants to fill out a declaration and mail it to us at our PO box,
Hmm.
we will deliver it that way too. And they don't have to know that it came from the PO box. They can think you were right there. um,
Lovely.
so
Sneaky.
yeah, so like, but we are trying to build the other side of the weights on this ledger, right? They are afraid of MAGA. They are afraid of the MAGA base.
Uh-huh.
They should also be afraid of other repercussions.
Tell me about, so what are people signing? It says basically just, Dear Representative, please impeach the president. Love, Alice.
Yeah, I mean, that would work. I would probably say a little more.
Okay.
Um, so the declarations that we have are uh, it says, um, I support impeachment and removal of Donald Trump. He has violated the Constitution, and we have a list of, I think it's 4 currently,
Hmm.
just really blatant, unobjectionable ways in which he's violated the Constitution.
Yeah.
And and it says for these reasons, I urge you as my representative to impeach and remove him. He is unfit for office. And then it has a spot for your information. And this is another place where being transparent carries more weight, right? It has your name, your zip code, your email address,
Hmm.
those kind of things to demonstrate that you are a real person and a real constituent and all that.
Oh, I would absolutely sign. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I want to come check out the movement. I've been so busy trying to get everything with my chapter set up, but I absolutely want to stop by and sign. And if people want to get involved in other ways, if they are local and they want to stop by and come do art, is there art allowed that's not chalk? Or if they want to come sing or protest, is that allowed?
So at Flair, they are doing art and singing, and I think they're probably going to start doing. They were talking about doing a funeral for the Bill of Rights, which I'm really excited about.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I love that.
their head of protest ops is really creative,
Yeah.
and I think he's great. But also, Mayday is going to be tabling on the National Mall, trying to collect those signatures for those declarations on Mondays and Saturdays from 8 to 6, and we need volunteers for that.
Perfect.
We also need help coordinating and building out mutual aid structures around the country. So if getting to DC is hard for you, but you can cat sit, for example,
Hmm.
somebody else goes to DC, that is a database we're trying to build out for people to be able to say, hey, I need someone to come take care of my dog for 3 days while I go to DC to talk to our representative. And that would be a really big contribution. And we're doing that through our database as well.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful.
Bum, bum, ba, bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, ba, bum, bum. Is there anything you want us to cover in terms of living through a revolution? Any topics that you're dying to hear about? Please reach out. Let us know in the comments or email us at hello@imperfectstrike.live.
Hannah, I don't know how much time you have. I would love it if you could stay and talk about strike for a few minutes. Is that
I would
okay?
love to hear about it. Yes.
Okay. So so do you have a sense of how many of your members, Mayday members, Flash members, know about General Strike?
We all know about General Strike, I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
we've been pretty connected with the General Strike Oregon group.
Okay.
I'm not sure how that happened. I think it's because our head of liaison and coalition building is based out of Oregon.
Yeah.
But we've been really connected to them, and they've sent in a lot of declarations and that kind of stuff. So
Hmm. Okay, so the reason I bring it up and the reason I want to talk about this is because I feel like we've talked a lot in the last hour about legislators and things that are working to confront the system, but somewhat within the system,
yeah,
where
definitely.
these are like the paths that have been set up for us. And I guess I want to get a sense of your personal views, but also maybe just larger Mayday. How many people do you also feel like have this sort of we need to burn it down and start over type attitude where the two-party system is not working for us? They're the representatives are not saying the things we want, doing the things we want. It's not a real democracy happening. Is there any sort of conversation going on like that?
Tons. And I think that's one of the constant balance points for a movement that is trying to make change within a system, but also is largely fueled by individuals who are not sure that the system can fix it, right?
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
it's a really tough balance because on the one hand, this tool exists, and if we don't give it a shot, I think that's a missed opportunity, right? The impeachment tool.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
but if you invest in that, it is almost necessarily to the exclusion of investing time and energy in some of these other burn it down, as you called it, right? And also, if you go too far in the burn it down, like we had a member who wanted to bring a guillotine and do a French Revolution demonstration, and I was like, I don't think Congress would listen to us if we did that. Like,
Still got to be a little safe, right?
right?
Yeah.
Like we just have to like strike a balance here.
Right,
And
right, right, right.
so there is definitely a constant conversation about how much we can work within the system. And also, I think there's a, as far as the two-party system, I personally, and I know a lot of the other Maydayers, although we've not had like group conversations because it's tangential to our work, but
Right.
the ranked choice voting solution to me is becoming a bigger and bigger talking point around the big structural changes that need to be made to make the country functional again.
Right.
Like, I would like a hat that says "Make America Functional Again" because
Oh, yes,
it
please.
is just not.
Livable. We need it to be a livable
Yes,
place.
absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, so there's this interesting balance going on where you have to weigh both. I totally agree. You have to try the things that are there and on the table. Um, but I also personally, I don't want to speak for all of General Strike, obviously. I'm never speaking for all of General Strike people putting it out there. But I do believe we just don't have time. I think even if he does get impeached, and even if if they allow elections next year, knock on wood, and the midterms go really well, there's this blue wave. Well, I think first of all, the blues who come in the blue wave are never going to be
Right,
revolutionary enough for what we need, right?
right.
Um, unless they want to come in as democratic socialists and say, here's housing and income and healthcare and go forth and prosper. Um, I don't think that would ever happen without a general strike. And I, yeah, there's also not time with the climate stuff. Are you worried about the climate stuff?
I was, but now I'm a little more worried about the fascism.
Yes, and that,
Um,
that seems correct.
yeah,
That seems the correct order to worry about things
it's
in.
yeah. And so in policy debate, there's this theory of the cliff, the urgency cliff, and
Yeah.
right. So things that are catastrophically bad but happen either further out or over a more gradual time frame,
Mm-hmm.
you have to assume a certain level of ability to mitigate for
Mm-hmm.
that you don't have for things that are immediate. Um,
Yes. Okay.
and that's kind of how I feel about, like, yes, the climate change stuff and I mean, we had a tornado watch in DC yesterday. That's wild. I absolutely think it is important and something we need to worry about, but also this iteration of power in the US is not going to make any progress there either, right? So
Right. Right.
we
Right.
we have to win this fight before we can even talk about winning that one.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, it's like, the climate change stuff is only going to get worse the longer MAGA is
Yes.
in power.
Yes.
Um, I guess I bring that up to say there's only so many hours in a day, right? Everyone, no matter how many fights you want to fight all at once, you are going to end up having to pick and choose a little bit. And for the people who have chosen Mayday, I I feel like that's amazing. And one way that you can also support fighting these other fights without having to spend so many hours on it is just signing a strike card. That's my little
Yeah.
elevator pitch because the sooner we get to shut down the financial systems of the US is the sooner that they take us seriously and start listening to us. And, I'm all for rest, right? People are so burnt out, people are so exhausted. Rest as revolution. I think if people need to, have these one day protests and show up and everything like that, that's great. You can find camaraderie, you can find community. But I think we all just need to like stay home and sleep for a week and not work and help feed each other. And, it would be so eye-opening for the people in charge. It would, hopefully get a lot of them out. Let's say we're committed to this.
I have a couple thoughts on that I'm curious about your response to, because
Sure.
I um I was at Cliff Cash's speech on Monday at the Flare site, and
Yes.
he made a comment about how a economic disruption is what this administration wants, and that economic disruption actually plays into their hands as an excuse to seize more control. And
Interesting.
this is novel thought to me. So I have no opinions on the credit worthiness of these statements. I'm just curious because I hadn't heard them before, and I feel like it would be he has a big audience, so I assume you'll be getting more responses like that. So
Interesting.
he said that economic disruption is actually not a good thing for the resistance right now because it will make people more susceptible to MAGA's talking points, and because it will make the justification stronger for higher intervention levels. Any thoughts?
My response to that is going to be, I think people are smarter than he's giving them credit for. And by that I mean people know who's been taking away their Medicare. People know who's been taking away, their food stamps, their ability to live without this constant financial pressure. It's this administration. I have also seen comments like that on things that I have posted about trying to send in petitions for impeachment. So on the general strike socials, right, we put up this post about if you want to sign this letter, send it to your district court. So I should have come to you guys because I didn't know that you were collecting signatures for that too. I get this comment, right, that says, if people do this, they're just going to sign an executive order saying you can't do this.
What?
And it's like, sure, maybe. That doesn't mean that we don't try.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting point that Cliff brings up, but the fact is they could say that about anything. They could say that about any sort of protest. If we got what, 12, 13 million people to show up for the No Kings, and it's like you could insert any protest action into that sentence and it could be true, but that doesn't mean that we don't do it.
Yeah.
And they're afraid. They're saying that because they're afraid. I don't know much about Cliff Cash, to be honest. I'm gonna have to look him up. But they are so afraid that we can take back the systems. Even just the threat of a TSA strike was enough to get the government restarted a few years ago. They didn't even have to go on full strike. This was like what, 2018?
Yeah.
And that's just one industry. And I mean, you've got people striking in Philly right now. I have no doubt they're going to succeed because we don't like trash piling up in our cities, turns out. Um, we've got calls for farm worker strikes happening. These things are only going to accelerate. And I'm curious to see where that fear is coming from in his mind.
Yeah.
That specifically the economic disruption is the thing that's going to bring down the might of the executive branch and not other things.
So I think what he's referring to, and I don't know, I haven't talked to him about it,
Yeah.
but there is a history of, so in the First World War, when the Weimar Republic before the Weimar Republic was created, the relationship between big labor and big military industry was so strong that the army essentially had authority to shut down any business they didn't like and draft effectively people into either industrialized labor or into military service.
Oh, wow.
And this was because based on the conflict of World War I, they felt that this was a good enough reason that they could just, and this was a particular problem for like the middle class kind of artisanal workers sort of area, right? Like mass production was the name of the game at that point. So there wasn't really a good spot for them in the system.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
And so there was a huge hollowing out of the educated but not elite groups, which were the people who were also most able to help lead opposition to bad policy, right? Mm-hmm. And so there was a a historical precedent that I imagine is what he's worried about, is this kind of intentional hollowing out of skilled labor and of educated potential leaders from positions where they can actually afford to feed themselves, that kind of thing.
Interesting. I, to be honest, I'm not sure I'm still 100% following, but so he's worried that like they're gonna start people are gonna start losing their jobs, obviously. People are gonna start losing their health care, and then they will then flee to the military in order to get some sort of livable
that
wage.
that the government will pick winners, and the industries that they choose to back will be ones that are non-skilled, easy to control kind of positions,
Interesting.
that kind of
Interesting.
thing. And that makes it harder. The classic story about it's always the upper middle class educated folks that start to notice that there's a chance at something better first, right? And they
I
start
see.
to lead the anti-fascist, anti-elitist, anti-aristocrat, whatever the current moment calls for.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why we do have to be somewhat vigilant, right? I mean, I
Yes.
I am all for local partner orgs. Anyone who wants to come sign a strike hurt, anyone who wants to be pro general strike, that's great. But we also, if people start thinking we're going to use this movement to lead people back to neoliberalist policies, we're never going to accept that. We are going to speak out against that. We are going to, shut them out, whatever it takes, because we can't just go back to 90s normal, right? Of like two parties, but they kind of both just doing the same thing. No, no, people need to be able to feed themselves and live off the land and not be in fear, constant fear, economic fear, climate change fear, whatever, starting another foreign war that we can't afford and nobody wants to die for. It's time for a complete overhaul. So I get that it's a scary time, but I'm still interested as to why he picked the economic part of that
Yeah,
because
I mean, I was surprised by that too. It was weird because the whole rest of his speech was like, rah, rah, go get him. But like, maybe don't do this. I was very jarred. But
I mean, people have their own personal things that they're scared by. Obviously, everyone's going to have their different things that they're not willing to do, and they'll let other people go handle that, right?
right.
But very interesting, especially because General Strike has declared themselves very publicly to be a nonviolent movement, and certainly never would want to compromise what we're striving for by being like, when I say burn it down, it's figuratively, right?
No,
It's
no, I don't think that. Sorry if I was unclear. I meant that it will be a excuse to pick winners in the economic environment, right? Like people will strike, the middle of the economy will die, and the government will then get to choose based on its own investment ability who to back and therefore where the jobs are.
I mean, again, like, sure, maybe. I,
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
seems like this, this exercise in predicting something so specifically that we just have no idea how it's going to play out. And I would also ask, like, have you not seen historically over and over that strikes work? That's why they're so scared of them. They absolutely work.
Well, I think
Um,
everybody should strike, and instead of just resting,
there you go.
maybe come to DC and talk to your legislators. That's what I think we should do. Like,
Yes,
if
absolutely.
we're already taking the time off, have I got an idea for you?
We have another assignment. Don't
Yeah,
just nap.
yeah. I mean, naps are good. Don't get me wrong. I love
Naps are
me a
good.
good
You can
nap.
take a nap and then you can go to DC,
Yes,
talk to your legislator.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite historical strike? Do you know of any that particularly inspire you?
Um, hmm.
This is going to be
So
my fun wrap-up question.
yeah, I think probably it was the farmers in Delhi. It wasn't that long ago, like 5, 6 years ago.
Ooh, I don't know this one.
They literally parked the tractors blocking all of the roads for
Hey.
several weeks. And
Hell yeah, they did.
it was like they brought their farm equipment and they were like, yeah, you thought you were going to get to keep doing business. Have I got a surprise? Like,
Oh
and
man,
they just used their farm equipment as barricades, and that was pretty awesome.
that
And then
is great.
every time the government would try to go like cut them off in some way from resources, the community would feed them and make sure they were okay.
Yes,
um,
it is
and
possible, people. It can be done.
it was pretty cool. My neighbors are Indian immigrants and just moved here a couple years ago and have been telling me a lot about how the things that are happening here analogize to things that they experienced at home. And so that's probably one of my favorite stories they've told. It's about the farmers who are just like, yeah, I'm gonna park this tractor right in your 4-lane highway. Suck it.
So good. That's giving me vibes of like the Canadian trucker
Yeah,
protest that happened,
for
but that one
sure.
was very different.
Yeah, that was a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing. We don't want to emulate that one, guys. We're gonna do me and my producer are gonna do a an episode on history of our favorite strikes. So I
Oh,
won't get
fun.
into it here, but Hannah, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing. We could keep talking for an hour. This is such fascinating stuff. But thank you for letting me know. If people want to go volunteer, please go volunteer at Mayday. I might see you down there.
Yeah, maydaymovementusa.org is the easiest way to get in touch with us. We have a volunteer email address. You can just shoot us a note and say what you want to do, and we will find either a place for you to do it with us, or we're pretty connected to everybody in this fight now. So we'll find somebody else if it's a better fit.
Yes, absolutely. And as always, people go forth, sign your cards, go make good trouble, and yeah, go talk to your legislators.
All right.
Thank you so much, Hannah.
Thanks, Alice. Bye.
Bye.
Imperfect Strike is recorded and edited by Alice and Maeve. To learn more about the General Strike or to sign your strike card, please go to generalstrikeus.com.